Hello there. Welcome back to the Divine Love Podcast. It's been over a year now since I've done one of these. I felt very guided and very drawn to pick this back up again and to do this. Why exactly that is, I'll get into a little bit later on, or why I feel like that is. But what I want to talk about today is kind of the last year and the journey that I've been on over the last year, and mainly, specifically the time I spent traveling. What I learned from that, how I feel like I've really grown from that, and the experiences and lessons I've learned. I just want to share it with you, and hopefully there's something in it for you. But mainly I just want to talk about my experience. So last year I left to go traveling mid of October, end of October. I think it was around about the 20th of October. And I booked a one-way ticket to Egypt. So I'm going to rewind a little bit, not too far back, and just express how I managed to get to that point where I chose to go traveling, and I chose this as 100% what I'm doing. No ifs, buts, or maybes. This is the path I'm taking. I've always wanted to go traveling. I've always had a real passion and a real desire to go and see the world. From a young age, I've known that that's something I've wanted to do. And I always kind of put it off, even just going traveling for like a week here or 2 weeks there. Even though I had a bit of money, I would always put it off. And I would say, no, I'm not going to go yet. I'm going to wait till this happens or that happens, or I'm not sure yet, or this, that, and the next thing. And I'm very young, and I know I have a lot of time in my hands, and I could go whenever I like, which was another thing about it. But got to the point where I was working my job. I didn't dislike my job, but I didn't love my job. I'd kind of lost the passion for it. I was working at this little farm, like city farm in the middle of Edinburgh, in a cafe, which wasn't the role at all that was described to me. So I wasn't really doing what I thought I was going to be doing for a start. I very much lost interest in it, but I enjoyed it because I had a really good group of people around me while I was at that job, and I made some really good friends there as well. So towards the end of August last year, I took my third ever dosage of LSD. I like to put a disclaimer out there, I'm not promoting the use of drugs. However, do your research and understand what these psychedelics, especially psychedelics, do. And just listen to people's experiences about them. I'm more than happy to do a deep dive on my experience with LSD if that's something people are interested in, because I've had 3 very profound but yet very different experiences with that psychedelic. But yeah, end of August last year, took LSD, being in this place where I was kind of in limbo. I wasn't unhappy, I wasn't happy, I was content, but I didn't have any motivation to really go and strive and do anything else. I was at that time kind of really dealing with a lot of stuff from my childhood, and that process definitely is carried on to the last year. But I feel like that's kind of come to fruition now, as there's a lot of the other things I'm healing and dealing with. During that experience, during that trip, if you want to call it that, it was made very apparently clear to me that I have to go traveling. And that's kind of all I'll speak on it at the moment in time. I can go into that whole experience in depth, but I'll be sat here for a long time talking about it, and it's not really what I want to get into today. So it was made very apparent to me by the end of it, this is what I want to do. I want to go and travel, and not only do I want to go and travel, but I need to go to the pyramids. That was pretty much how it came across to me during this experience. And I said that from that moment, I'm doing it. I'm going. I give myself a little over a month. At that time, I had very little money to my name in my bank account. I gave myself a little over a month to save up some money, and the universe definitely helped me with that. I had £2,000 of an injury claim from a car crash that I had 6 months ago that I hadn't pursued, and come through 2 weeks before I was meant to leave. So that made a massive difference to how the actual traveling went. And along the way, I was introduced to a lot of other means that that allowed me to travel for a lot longer, as well as some help. Not a lot, but as well as a little bit of help from a couple of family members, and so on and so forth. So I fly. I booked a one-way ticket to Egypt, and that was the first thing I did. I didn't hesitate. Second, I had enough money to, I booked the ticket, and then I knew I couldn't. I didn't have an excuse. I did not have a reason not to go. I booked the ticket. Still didn't feel real to me though. I still kind of knew. I think there was a part of my mind that knew I could back out of this if I really want to. Um, I just don't have to go to the airport. It was kind of where my mind was at the time. So it didn't really seem real to me. But then the time kind of started to go in. I handed in my resignation, um, and it started to become a little bit more real. But still, at the same time, it wasn't like I wasn't 100%. I was like, oh well, I could not go and just get another job or whatever it is. And even as I'm driving to the airport, still didn't really kind of set in. The second it really set in for me that, oh, I'm actually doing this, um, was the second I got through security. Because there's a sense of once you go through that process, there's no turning back at that point. There's a real feeling of that. And then when I stepped on the plane, it was very adamant. Okay, we're doing this now, Ethan. And I felt very proud of myself for getting to that point, for being able to actually do it and just get on the plane and put myself on the way to Egypt. I had very little plan. I had wrote out this kind of plan beforehand, this idea of what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to do a lot of walking. If I was going to go for a while, I knew I wanted to do a lot of walking. So I had this idea of walking right around the Mediterranean, from Egypt into Jordan, Israel, over to Cyprus, up into Greece, all the way through Greece, over to Italy, up Italy, into the south of France, and then inevitably finish in Portugal. And that didn't really play out like that. And I didn't think it would, because my heart, when I made that kind of plan, my heart wasn't really set on it, but everyone was telling me you need to have some sort of a plan or whatever. So I kind of made this doodle in my head of, oh, maybe I could do this, And it was a big, big expectation for me to be someone who was not an avid walker at all to go, yeah, I'm just going to walk all of this. It was kind of what I had in my head. I was like, I'll just do it. And I'll buy everything I needed on the way. I didn't have anything with me for camp, but I had a really good backpack. But other than that, I had nothing to actually use to camp. My thinking was, oh, I'll just hop between hostels, and yeah, it doesn't work like that. So yeah, I get to Egypt, and I get off the plane, and my first kind of 3-4 days I'm spent in Giza at this hotel right next to the pyramids. You go into the balcony and you're looking at the pyramids, and it was incredible. Even now, I kind of pinch myself thinking about it. You don't realize the scale of these pyramids until you're there. You really don't. You see pictures and you see videos. It does not do it justice at all. And the Sphinx is amazing. Everything about that area is truly incredible. Now, I got there and I was in a kind of very judgmental and a very different place than I am right now. And everyone beforehand was telling me, you need to be careful in Egypt. You're going to get robbed. You're going to get this. You're going to get that. I never had a bad experience in Egypt. Don't get me wrong, everyone's trying to sell you something, which I respect. And there was definitely a few times where I could tell people were trying to scam me a little bit. I definitely paid way more for certain things than I should have. After speaking to a few people, sunscreen was the first one I learned with that. I got there, realized I had no sunscreen in a country that was 32 degrees. The sun was out all day, and I was like, I'm definitely gonna burn. Gonna need to get me some sunscreen. And I got really overcharged for that. But I understood that's just the process. I don't know any of the language. I don't really know the process. I didn't actually understand the price of it either. I knew it was probably too expensive, and I said to him, this is too much. He goes, that's the price. If you want to go somewhere else. And I didn't want to go somewhere else. And for me, the actual cost, it was about 20 quid I paid for sun cream, which in this country is a lot, and over there is a lot. But anyway, I'm just kind of explaining that as that was my only kind of experiences I had in Egypt that I felt threatened by, and like that. I never had, the whole time I was traveling, I never had one bad experience. Apart from the experiences that I created in my head, which is very fascinating. I'll get into that in a little bit. So I hope you sit around because I might ramble on a bit here. This might take a while. I have a lot to talk about. Um, but if you're interested, then by all means stay around. But for me, this is just going to be a nice little record of my travels and speaking about it in hindsight about a year later. Sorry to sidetrack there. I got a little bit lost in thought. So we'll carry on. So I'm at the pyramids and I go and I'm walking about the pyramids and I had one bad, sorry, it's come back to me now. I had one bad experience at the pyramids. My only experience the whole time I was there. So I'm walking about the pyramids and I did not take a conventional route. I went into all these little, if you've ever been to the pyramids, so you have the Sphinx, the pyramids are behind the where the Sphinx is. You have to walk up the hill. But then on the left, there's a lot of these little, like, tiny little kind of what seems like little holes in the ground that were little homes or something like that. I don't really know how to describe it. I'm sure there's a proper word for what they are. It beats my mind. Anyway, so I went and I explored all of them. No one else was over there. No one really goes there. Everyone's there to see the pyramids. They're not to see all this. But I felt drawn to go and do that. And I'm walking through here, and I feel like I'm connecting with all these people that must have made these ones that haven't really been recognized or acknowledged, and there was some really cool carvings in some of these ones that I probably not a lot of people have went and seen just because they're not willing to go and look at that stuff. It's not interesting when you have the pyramids sat right there. And then I kind of went off to the left, the far left hand side, and there's no, in this place where at least the path I took, there was no signage to say don't climb on this stuff, don't go in this area. There was nothing there to actually tell me that, the kind of path that I took to get to this place. So I climbed up the side of this kind of structure. I don't really know what it was. I think it was some sort of tomb for someone else. I couldn't tell you what it was. I really couldn't. I climbed up there and I'm sat at the top and I'm reading my book and I'm journaling. And then I get a phone, I get not a phone call, I get a shout down. I look down to my left, there's this guard shouting at me, telling me to get down from there. So I go down, and this is where I made my first mistake. He says to me, give me your passport, where's your passport? So I pull out my passport and I'm like, look, this is where I'm from the UK, I didn't realise, I'm sorry. I won't go back up, my apologies. Being very polite. And he holds on to my passport, he doesn't give me it back. And at that point, a little bit of panic set in. And I'm like, shit, that's the one thing I need to get home. And from that point, I can assure you, I never even let anyone know I had my passport on me. I did not get rid of it. It was a lesson that I learned very quickly. And I'm grateful for that lesson, because without that lesson, it could have really fucked me up in the future and later on down the line. So I'm glad that happened real nice and early, like second day in Egypt, that happened to me. And I knew how the corruption was with these kind of guards. People had already spoke to me about it before. If you pay people enough money, they're gonna let you do just about anything. Like they'll let you jump up on the pyramids and take a picture if you pay them enough money. And all the guards understand this. It's a big tipping thing. It's very corrupted, and it's if you're willing to give them some money to do it. So I got up, go to this guard. They walked me up to this other guard, tell me I was going to go to prison, and my heart is pounding. I'm like, shit. And I go, oh wait a minute. And I put my wallet and I go, let me give me some money. I'll take my passport. I'll go. And he goes, okay. And that inside I'm laughing. I'm like, this is an absolute piss take. Inside I'm like, this is ridiculous. The fact that this is how this system's run. But I was like, I was grateful for it at the same time, because I was like, I don't want to go to prison here. I'm in a foreign country. I don't have my passport. This would be a very bad experience. So I paid them whatever it was. I can't remember how much. And I go about my business. I go up to the pyramids, and I'm walking around these pyramids, and they're incredible. I never went in any of them. They were closed the day I was there, so I never got the opportunity to go in any of them. But it really was something, and the energy of that place. You can tell when you're there. At least I felt anyway, and I had a very strong feeling of like, this is not a creation of just a human. This is not the way they tell you how it's done is an absolute lie, and I've known that for a while. But being there and seeing it really kind of affirmed that to me. Like, this is not what they say this is. And the amount of energy just in that area alone is very unique. However, it did feel very corrupted. there's something that really bugs me about having to pay. Now, I understand it to an extent, but there's something that bugs me about putting a paywall on being able to access these sacred grounds, because these are not their grounds. They're not. These are sacred grounds that have been there for thousands and thousands of years. And people should have access to them. But I understand why it's there. It's so people don't go in and vandalize them and fuck them up. I get it. But inevitably, I would love it if society on a whole would just respect these things for what they are, not fuck them up, and everyone can enjoy them for free. Anyway, so that same night that I'm at the Pyramids, I have a Russ concert at the Pyramids. This is the best concert I've ever been to in my life. No questions asked, no ifs, buts, or maybes. The best concert I have ever been to. I don't want to sit here and say the best concert I'll ever go to, but I do not know how you top that concert. He's my favorite artist ever. His music speaks to me more than any other artist that I've ever listened to, and it's at one of my favorite locations ever. That day for me was, and that was like my first proper day traveling in Egypt after I kind of settled into the hotel or whatever else. That was my first proper day there, and it was immense. It was a real way to kick it off, and I felt the whole time, I felt like, the universe is really working with me here. I followed what it told me to do, and I'm having these experiences that I can't even fathom, and I'm just expressing my gratitude. I'm going with the flow, and I'm just having a good time. Get to the venue like 4 hours early for anyone else, and they're still setting up. I'm walking about with my notepad and pen, pretending to be a member of staff, just because I know I'm not meant to be there. But I didn't realize that I had to leave the grounds and come back in and whatever else. So I'm there with my notepad and pen. I'm just chilling outside of it. I'm walking in and going around. Spoke to a few of the security guards there, chatting away with people, just having a good time. Seen Russ beforehand. Like, I didn't meet him, but I seen him. He was taking some pictures and stuff. Where I was like, "That's crazy." The man that is really one of my idols, one of the people I look up to, is standing right there. Which I was like, "That's so crazy to me," And I've seen him in concert before, and I was pretty close as well. But it's a different thing when he's not in a performative setting and you see someone that you really look up to and that you admire. And it's not only that, but his music genuinely changed my life. His music has really guided me through a lot of different parts of my life. And for me, his music speaks to me in a way that no other artist can. It's very hard for me to explain. It's like there's a real soul connection there between me and his music and what is put out there. And I feel like the more I get into that, there's definitely that case with a lot of artists. Their fan base, it speaks to that group of people, and that group of people understand it and feel it. And Russ has one of the most insane fan bases I've ever seen. A real die-hard fan base. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. And I'm up there, I'm dancing away, I'm singing my heart out. I'm the only white boy there. Like, the only one. Like proper, I mean like white, not non-Egyptian really. Apart from like the people that are with Russ and his kind of entourage and career or whatever. So I'm up there, I'm singing my heart out, I'm dancing away. I'm having an amazing time. Not a care in the world. And then I got a tap on the shoulder. And I'm only going to tell this because for me, this kind of reinforces more that the universe was working with me, and the universe was in the process of kind of cooking something up for me and going, look, anything's possible here. And I kind of said the morning of, I was like, it'd be crazy. Like, just imagine if I got taken backstage. And one of my goals that I have set for myself in my life is to sit down and have a long form conversation with Russ, because I'm fascinated about how he got to where he is on a real deep level, on a different way than he expresses across the face. I would like to just sit there and have a conversation like that with him and tell him about how his music's helped me and whatever else. And that's something that I've had in my mind for a few years, and I've kind of wrote down a few times and started to bring into existence. And if it's meant to be, it'll be. I'm not forcing it, I'm not pushing it, I'm not pulling it. I trust the universe will make whatever is meant to be for me happen. Yeah, I'm dancing, I got a tap on my shoulder, and this guy and I'll cut this story down because otherwise I will be sitting here rambling for hours about my experience here. But he taps me on the shoulder. I kind of not really paying attention. I'm looking back forward. He taps me and he goes, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm not bad." Ask where I'm from. I tell him. We have a little bit of conversation, and he goes, "You're you're as big, like you're easily his biggest fan." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're out here, you're singing, you're dancing," and I look around as he says that. I'm like, "Oh, no one else is really like these people like Russ, but I know every word to every song he played. Um, they're not really vibing the way I was. Like I must have been really projecting my energy in a different way at that moment to get to be recognized like that." And he goes, I'm going to try my best to get you to meet Russ." So they took me backstage. I met a couple of people that were part of the organizing team, a couple of managers, whatever else. I met his manager. I met his mum. And I panicked when I seen his mum. And this one of these things where like, the second I did it, I was like, "Oh, Ethan, what? That is not how you approach someone." So his mum's kind of standing pretty much the same distance this camera is from me right now. And I'm kind of looking about, and I keep kind of clocking eyes with her. And I just said to her, I was like, and the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "I know who you are." And I was like, "Oh no. Oh no, that is not how that is not how you start a conversation." And I straight away apologized. I realized so quick. I was like, "Oh my days, that is so not how you have a conversation with another human being." I said, "I'm so sorry. Um, I love your son. I love his music, and his music's really helped me through a lot." And she kind of smiled, and then she was kind of in the process of going about her business, and that was it. So, not a conversation with her. I had a conversation with his manager though, which was pretty dope. And then I get taken into this little green room. This is in the middle of the desert. Like the pyramids are right behind us, and there's, I say the middle of the desert. It's not in the middle of the desert. It's in the desert. It's next to the pyramids. And so these like these cloth kind of green rooms or little changing rooms or whatever for Russ and his crew. On one side, they put me in that, and on the other side, it's Russ's one. He's still got like a song left to play on stage. I'm in there. There's these two Indian boys with me from the Indian show, and they were apparently being quite rude, and no one really wanted them to be there, but they were allowed to be there for whatever reason. And they'd already kind of said to me, like, "Look, we don't really think you're going to get the opportunity to see Russ because, you know, this is a big experience for me. He wants to take him, be with his family." I was like, and at that point, the second that I got taken round the back, I said to myself, I was like, "I do not care if I meet him. I don't." I just released all expectations straight away, and I went, "Whatever will be right now will be, and I'm grateful for this experience." And that was the first time I'd ever really kind of had that in that kind of situation. You know, a lot of the time in the past before then, if something like that where like it kind of was placed in front of me and it was almost in touching distance, I would get excited and I'd start thinking, and my ego would really come into play and go, you know, "Oh yeah, this is because I'm this and I'm that." And I didn't do that for the first time in a very long time that I can recall. And that was really quite something. Um, so yeah, in the green room, then this guy shows up with his three kids, all young, oldest maybe like, pardon me, oldest maybe like 12 years old, and they get to go through. Now it turns out he was the owner of the venue, so he has big money. I'm like, I get that happens. And I'm sat in this green room. There's like a full thing of fruit. I've not eaten in a few hours. I'm sitting there just having some real nice fruit. There's like some juice and whatever. I'm just enjoying myself sitting in this green room. And then I hear Ross speaking, and he is probably about that far away from me behind this big curtain. And I'm like, that's so crazy. Like this man I'm looking up to, you know, I can put my hand through this. I can touch him if I wanted to. That's so bizarre, you know. And then so then I come out of there. He comes out, and everyone's chasing after him to get a picture. I just stood there. I just stood there and I looked. The whole time I'm just expressing my gratitude. I'm going, "Thank you. You know, thank you for allowing me to have this experience. Thank you for everything that I'm being given right now." And I'm so grateful. And I'm there, and I was like, and the whole time while I'm there, I'm like, how am I going to get back? Like, it's real dark now. We're quite far up. It's not exactly an easy walk back out to where I am. And there's not like a lot of buses and stuff. A lot of people were just walking down the road, or they were getting picked up or whatever. Um, So one of the people that kind of brought me backstage were trying to wait. They gave me a lift down. I met some really cool people there. It was just a really nice time. So that was Giza. That was the experience I had with the pyramids. Incredible. First couple of days, really something else. Then I walked from there into Cairo. I took an Uber in a bit. Then I went to a museum, walked from one museum to another museum in the middle of Cairo. That was a really different experience walking through Cairo because I'd never really seen poverty like that in my life. I'd never really seen people who were really genuinely struggling just to have the the bare necessities you need like to live. You know, we can have a very different view of it in this country, and it's not the same thing. It really isn't. And there's not one person in this country, and I'm gonna say this lightly, and I understand people are in very rough and tough situations in this country, and I'm talking about the UK and Scotland. But there is not one person in this country that is close to the level of poverty that they are there. In this country, there's places you can go, there's people you can speak to, there is things in process you can use. How good they are is a different question, but they're there. There's food banks, there's homeless shelters. That country is poor. Like it's not the same thing. But yet everyone was so much happier. Everyone was so much happier. And that really opened my eyes. That really changed a lot of my perspectives, and it was a real shock to the system, you know. And I've never felt so much joy walking through those streets. I felt very privileged walking through those streets. I'm walking out here with a £300 backpack on my back. I've got a phone in my pocket that's worth a good bit of money. I've got a lot of money in my bank account, probably compared to most of these people. And I really walked through there going, you know, I'm very fortunate right now that I get to travel and come and see this country. Most of these people have probably never even left where they've grown up. They've never had the opportunities to do so. And then I spoke to someone later on my trip. I realized it's actually quite hard to leave Egypt. In some cases, you need to have references and you need to get referrals to go into a lot of different countries. And it really made me understand my freedoms that were there, but it also made me acknowledge the limitations of my freedoms as well, and how easily freedoms can be taken away from you when a government and a government body and a country and a world system comes into play that forces that to happen. And I was very grateful to be shown that, because it was a big lesson for me, and it was a big eye opener for me, and it was something that I had never experienced before. And even sitting thinking about it now, it's kind of really bringing it back to me. I have not really I've not sat down and done this with myself on my travels, and I've been back for 6, 7 months now. It's 7, 8 months now. It's really quite something. So I'm gonna keep going. I don't want to get too caught up. Cairo for me was just way too busy. There was a lot going on. Then I ended up meeting this guy in Cairo. Really nice guy. We went up. He took me up to Alexandria with one of his mates. Went up to Alexandria, which is north on the Mediterranean Sea. Spent a couple of days in Alexandria, explored that, came back down. Then I was going to go straight on the train. Was going to go straight back down to Luxor on the train, all the way down to Luxor on the train. That never happened because they had one of the worst rains of the year at that time. And I'm out on the street, like in the rain, going, wow, I missed, I'd be 2 weeks, maybe. I'm like, wow, I missed the rain. And it's so hot there. So when it rained, I'm out in the street, I'm walking about dancing. I'm like, this is great. And everyone else, the way they pack up their stuff's crazy. You have all these stalls, the next second they're gone. And everyone's looking at me like, what the fuck's this guy doing? And I'm just having a good time. I'm really in flow. And I'm learning to trust. Through this whole process, I'm learning to trust other people a lot. I'm learning to put my trust in the universe. I'm learning to put my trust in the process that's happening. And there are a lot of times I was very hesitant, especially when I met this guy. His name was Omar. I was very hesitant, and I was, I was a wee bit cautious the whole time whenever I was meeting someone, because I just didn't know. Like, I didn't know what their culture was like. I didn't know anything about it, and the the picture that had been painted to me rather, um, beforehand was not the reality. And a lot of these people that had painted this picture had never been there. So it's very interesting to see how quickly people judge based off of what their perception is, through what they've been told in the media and movies and whatever else. So that in itself was quite eye opening. Spent another week in Cairo, and I met a really interesting woman in Cairo. She had been traveling for years, 20 odd years. She's a good bit older than me. I'm not going to sit here and butcher her age, because if she ever watches this, she'll not be happy. But very wise soul. And we're sitting in this hostel, and she starts kind of speaking about some stuff, and I made another comment. I think it was something to do with what was happening in the world at the time, and I kind of made a comment, and she very much straight away kind of took an interest and realized that I knew a thing or two about what she was talking about, and I had a little bit of information. It was something to do with like some conspiracy or whatever, what was happening in the world and how it really was, media or something like that. Um, but the second I walked in there, I was drawn to her. I was like, who's this woman? She's very unique. There's a lot of really young people in this hostel, and then there's her, and she stood out to me. And she got like this kind of like hippie style clothing on, whatever, the bandana. So we ended up sitting speaking for hours. We went out, got something to eat, and we were just chatting away. She was telling me a lot about traveling. She was telling me all. She was really giving me a lot of information that I was very grateful for. She talked to me about her yogi. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. Like someone that she would go to, her spiritual teacher or whatever, to go to and like listen to. And I've actually only ever listened to one video of that so far, but now that I've thought about it, I might go back and find who that is. I'm not going to share who that was. She said to me, please don't share who this is. This is mine. I'm sharing it with just you. Um, so I'm going to keep that, because that was the one thing she asked me. So, yeah, then I decided, okay, I need to make my way to Luxor, which is this down the south. And I didn't even know Luxor existed before I got there, but people that I'd met told me, you have to, if you're interested in temples and stuff, you have to go to Luxor. And Luxor was incredible. It really was. I spent 2 and a bit weeks there, and I loved it. I stayed on the west bank of Luxor, which is the kind of smaller, more local, villagey side of Luxor. It's the size of it is nowhere in comparison to Cairo. Luxor used to be the capital, and down there you have Luxor Temple, you have Karnak Temple, you have Valley of the Kings, Valley of the Queens. There's a lot of temples in that area. I mean a lot, and I loved it. I had some experiences in those temples and those ancient sites that were so profound. I had one where I went in and I got taken down into this place that I don't think a lot of people get to go into, and the whole process of it, I really felt like it was being the universe really just kind of took control of this guy and went, "Come with me." That's exactly what happened. So I'm walking through this temple, and I'm walking about, and I'm taking my time. I'm feeling the energy. I'm dancing with the energy, and the whole time I know that I'm there, and I know I'm doing some really heavy spiritual work and some energy work, some really heavy stuff. And I'm getting activations, I'm getting downloads, and I'm working with all these different beings, and I'm speaking to them. And this has been happening from the second I was at the pyramids all the way through Egypt. Um, I really can't explain to you how incredible this was for me, and the feelings and sensations that had come over me. So I'm walking through this temple. I think it was somewhere in Luxor or Karnak. I'm definitely butchering that second one. And I'm walking through one of these temples, and they have like these guys now. They're not guards. They're like kind of ancient. I don't really know what they are. I want to say they're like, monk's not the right term, but it's like they're sacred protectors of the land or something like that. I don't really know how to describe it, but they were like, if the guards see us, we're in big trouble. And he never took a penny off me, which is why it was the most interesting for me, because, and I said that to him straight, I was like, I have no money. He goes, no, come with me. And he took me through this thing, through like 4 different locked doors. People do not get to go into where I went to. 4 different locked doors. He moves this stone, this big ass stone, he moves it, goes down underneath. And he gave me a crystal, put it in my hand, he goes, sit here, meditate. And I'm in a dark room underground, like in this chamber underground. And I'm sitting there and I'm meditating. And I come out and I give him his crystal back. And I could not fathom what just happened to me. I was like, oh, the universe has really just done something there. It was crazy. It really was. And for me, as much as I had all these amazing experiences up to then, that right there was a defining moment for me on that experience. Because that was like, oh, anything's possible. Like, and I meant anything was possible. Like, the divine and source had worked through this other being to make sure that I was exactly where I needed to be. And it took all the stress off of my brain thinking of, well, maybe I need to go here, maybe I need to go there. What if I need to go there? And I just went, no. I just go where my feet take me, and I go with the flow. That's exactly what I did from there on out. I went with the flow, and it was incredible. Valley of the Kings was super dope. Valley of the Queens was super dope. There's a couple of temples up in those mountains as well. Really interesting, super dope. Loved it. Met a really cool woman there. Went to a woodwork course. I'm really going to try and speed this up a little bit now because I know I'm dragging this on a bit. Went to a woodwork course. Was in Luxor with this woman. We were chatting away, staying in a really cool hotel suite. Got it for an amazing price, and it was a suite. It was the best room they had for the same price as my hostel. Actually, a little bit more. For me, it worked out as £1 more a day than my hostel was. Amazing food at that place. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever you wanted. Fresh juices. Then I fell sick. On my last 2 days in Egypt, I fell sick, and I was in this, and I wasn't planned to be my last 2 days in Egypt. I should clarify that as well. I didn't have any plans. So I'm in this hotel room, and I did not move for like 2 days. Really wasn't feeling good, and I started looking. I'm like, I need to get out of Egypt. I just knew the feeling kind of came over. I was like, I need to go. My time in Egypt's up. Like, it's done just now. I don't need to be here anymore. I looked at flights to India, and I was really looking at flights to India. I thought, maybe I'll go to India, maybe I'll go to India, maybe I'll go to India. And I chose not to. I don't regret that decision for 1 second. I knew that wasn't what I was meant to do, and I went back to my kind of original plan that I had made before I left, and I went, okay, India was not on this. The only reason India kind of came into my head is because a lot of people had spoke about India and the spiritual relevance of India and all these retreats and stuff like that. And then I ended up just booking a flight to the island of Rhodes, which I've already been to at that point. I'd already been there for a week before with one of my ex-girlfriends, and I loved it when I was there. And the flight was really cheap from Luxor, then to Athens, then from Athens to Rhodes. And I went, fuck it, I'm booking it. And at that time, I was using the Workaway app. So I'd found this place on Workaway. It was this yoga retreat. You work for a couple hours a day, and you get like your bed and food, whatever. And I stayed there for 2 months. I stayed on the Island Road for a good 2 months. I spent Christmas and New Year's there. Sophie, who at the time was, we were going out before I left, and I broke up with her because I wanted true freedom while I was traveling. I knew that was very important for me, and I kind of told her that at the time as well. She came out to spend her birthday and New Year's with me. We had a really nice time because it was nice to see a familiar face after a while of traveling. At that point, it was about 3 months of traveling, a little over that, probably 4. Um, yeah, no, 4 months, somewhere in there. I don't want to do the math. I can't be bothered. And yeah, it was quite incredible. So while I was there, I bought all the stuff I needed to go camping and walking, and I had set out. I was okay. I'm going to go to Athens, and then maybe fly to then Malta, and then from Malta I'll make my way up Italy, and I'll camp all the way up Italy and wherever else, and I'll go through. And I bought a hammock rather than a tent. Thought it was pretty cool. Really glad I bought it. Super dope. Um, did make it did make my life difficult at times trying to find somewhere. I wouldn't take a hammock again. I would take a tent. A lot more versatile. A hammock, you need to have trees, which makes a big difference, I might add. But in Greece, it wasn't a problem. When I got to Italy, it was a problem. So basically, what ended up happening is I went to Athens, and the second I got to Athens, I walked through the city. I walked through the city at night. I was like, this is pretty dope. Next day, I got up, and I was like, this is way too busy. I've been in the middle of nowhere on an island in Rhodes for a while. Um, Now, I actually going to step back just a second and talk about Rhodes and some of my experiences there just in detail. I kind of skipped over it very quickly. But 2 months was a lot of time there, and I spent a lot of time there. So I'm going to go into a couple of the really defining things for me, things that stick out in my head very clearly. First one is Kevin. I met this lanky German guy called Kevin. I won't give his full name, but his name's Kevin, and the second I met, it just clicked. Me and him get on like an absolute house on fire. And we did some real some real interesting shit together. We went to this castle in Lindos. They have this kind of, it's got these pillars above it, but then there's this kind of castle that had been built around it. We drove there. I'm renting a car. We drove there at by the time we got there, it was dark pretty much. And he just started scaling this thing. He's not like anyone else I've ever met. He's a very unique soul, very unique individual in a beautiful way. And he taught me a lot about being free and just doing what you want to do and having fun. And he kind of brought that inner child back in me a bit. I'm very grateful for that. And he just climbed up this fucking wall, and it was a big wall for me. Like, this was not something I'd be comfortable climbing. And he did it, and I went, and he's like, you coming? And I hesitated. I went, fuck it, you know what, why not? So I did it, climbed up this castle, middle of the night, nowhere in there. This place is all lit up by lights once you're in it. Now, I'd been there before with one of my exes, and I loved it when I was there the first time. And I went back, and I'm up there, and I'm walking through this place barefoot, just loving every second of it. So in awe of how incredible this place is. I went to all the places that you weren't meant to go to. And I'm doing energy work the whole time. I'm sitting there, I meditated for a little bit, and then I stand up, and I'm like in the background of my being. Like, I'm just kind of paying attention. I'm observing. I'm fully just observing at this point. And this voice just starts speaking through me, and it's talking to all these souls who have been trapped here for thousands of years, talking about setting them free. And it gives this massive speech as I'm walking about here, dancing about barefoot. Really, truly incredible. And then I'm like, how am I getting down here? I go to this, and me and Kevin are kind of split up. We're kind of doing our own thing in this place. I'm like, how do I get down from here? And there's this cliff, and it's a fucking cliff. It is a drop. And for some reason, I do not know why, I scaled down the side of this cliff. And I did it with grace and flow, and it was one of the easiest things I've ever done in my life. I had no fear, I had no hesitation. I just took one step at a time, took it real slow, one hand after another. And I cannot describe to you the state my body was in, and the state that my mind and my soul and my spirit and energy was in doing that, and going down that cliff face. And I got to the bottom and I looked back up, and this cliff face was at least 25, 30 meters, if not more. And it's like sheer rocks. Like, it's, if I fell from the top, I was dead. If I fell from about halfway, I'd probably be dead, just because I would hit the rocks at the bottom and crack my head clean open. And I got to the bottom and I looked up and I went, holy shit, I just did that. Like, I've just climbed down that. With no harnesses, no nothing, no real experience rock climbing. And people might hear that and go, that's really stupid, but I was not in control. I wasn't in control. It was not me that did that. There was something that came over me and did that. That is the only way I can describe it. It was like an outer body experience where I'm watching myself doing this thing. Super bizarre. Cannot explain that to you. And there's another one where we went up to this, and me and Kevin went to the Seven Springs, and we're sat there. It's pissing it down with rain, but we're just enjoying the purest water I've ever had. They clean it, the most delicious water I've ever had at this natural spring in the middle of Greece. And yeah, we had a lot of really cool experiences, in a short period of time. And he went on to go to Turkey, and I went on to go to Athens. So back to Athens. I'm in Athens. I spent a total of three whole days in Athens. After the second day, I realized very quickly that this was not it. I did not want to be there. There was way too much going on. The energy of it was not sitting right with me. I didn't like it. I went and seen everything I wanted to see. I went and seen the Parthenon. I might be butchering that as well. But I went and seen that. And it's incredible. I love all the ancient stuff there, all the sites. Again, still have this kind of feeling of like, it kind of annoyed me, the fact that you have to pay to go and see a lot of these stuff. I get it for the big ones, but for the small ones. But then again, it's the same thing I said with Egypt. I get why it is like that. These are sacred grounds. They need to be protected. The way they can protect them is by bringing in money and revenue and blah, 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 blah. So, and like I said, in hindsight, there was a lot of ego involved in those statements. I don't really feel that way anymore. I get it. It is what it is. I don't hate it. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm at the I really feel like I'm butchering this name. I'm at the Parthenon, or however you say it. It's the one that's like that big white building on top of the hill. If you can picture that in your head when you think of Greece. And I'm walking around there, and I take my shoes off, and I start walking a bit barefoot. I'm on rocks, and there's a little bit of pathway here and there, and I'm walking a bit barefoot, just connecting. I got pulled over. A guard came over to me and said, "You need to put your shoes on right now." I went, "Why?" And I was like, "Well, give me the reason why." It's like, this is sacred ground. You have to put your shoes on. And I went, "Surely it's more disrespectful to walk on this ground with shoes on than not shoes on. My feet are clean. Like, I shower." You know what I mean? Surely it is way more disrespectful to be walking about here with dirty ass shoes on and scraping rubber everywhere and dragging your feet on the ground rather than being cautious and taking your time and walking. I think of it almost like a mosque where you have to take your shoes off before you go in. That's the kind of feeling I had around it. But anyway, I apologised and I put my shoes on. I didn't argue with him. I got that he was just doing his job. And at that point, I was okay, this is my cue to leave. So I'd already walked around and seen everything a couple of times. Went away. Went back to the hostel. No, I didn't go back to the hostel. I had all my stuff with... Did I have all my stuff with me then? No, I didn't. I went back to the hospital, got all my stuff, then I left. And I got back to my hospital, and I've been looking at flights to Malta. And I had all my camera stuff with me and whatever. I've been looking at flights to Malta, and they weren't going to be for a few weeks. And I was like, they were like a reasonable price. I could have got one, but it would have been ridiculous money for a flight to Malta. And one for like a reasonable price was going to be like 2 weeks' time. I was like, if I wait here for 2 weeks, I'm going to spend way more money than I would be for that flight. So either I pay that, or I pay the price of the flight now, or I wait for 2 weeks. And then it just came to us like, oh, we just walk. Like, why don't we just walk? We have legs, we have all the stuff we need to camp. Let's just walk. So I walked right across Greece. I walked across mainland Greece. I went from Athens, and it was quite something. It really was. I'm walking along real busy motorways and dual carriageways, and then at some really beautiful back scenic routes, some mountain passes. Um, I walked along some really cool places, man, and the whole time I'm having conversations with myself. I'm listening to music. I'm having a good time. I'm having a really, really good time. Um, I'm feeling connected. There was a couple of days that were challenging. You feel like you're walking for ages. You can't find the right place to pitch your hammock, and but I never really lost faith. I just kept going. I enjoyed it, just one step at a time. Just one step at a time. Just one step at a time. I just kept going. Met some really nice people along the way. Stopped at some really cool cafes. Had some nice food. Um, and I was just enjoying that journey. And then I got halfway. I say I walked across Greece. I walked halfway across Greece, and then once I got to this place in the middle of Greece now, I know the name of this. Corinthos? I believe it's Corinthos. Pretty sure. I got to Corinthos, which is halfway across mainland Greece, pretty much. And they have the channel that connects the two seas. It's like this big natural channel that connects the two different oceans or two different sides of it, whatever, together. And you cross that, and that took me a while to cross. I walked the entire length of that thing. So I could have crossed at the side I was at, and I was looking on my maps, like there must be a cooler way to cross this. And on the maps, it showed this bridge that was a walk bridge. There was pictures of it on Google and stuff like that. So I walked all the way along this thing, and the walk bridge had been taken away. Like they were doing construction in that area, that it'd been gone. I was like, that sucks. It is what it is. So I ended up walking all the way along to the other side, which worked better because I knew I was to get to Corinthos, and that was closer to that side, whatever. And I was doing a lot of walking. I was doing like between 15 and 20, like 15 or at least 15 kilometers every single day. At least. I was doing a lot of walking. And I have a lot of weight on my back as well, I should add. So it's not like I'm just free walking. Like I've got a lot of weight on me. And my legs were tired. I managed to get to Corinthos, got to this hostel. I stayed in that hostel for like 4 or 5 days. No, 3 4 days. And I'm just chilling out. Like I'm shattered. I'm my mind's starting to race a little bit. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like I couldn't really fathom what my journey was here. I was like, why am I doing this? I could just get a bus. I could just do this. I could just do that. Why am I doing this to myself? But I already kind of had the thought of like, we could get a bicycle. We get a bicycle. It's going to make this a bit quicker. You're still going to be kind of going at a pace that's not insane. You're not going too quick where it's rushing by you. You're still being connected. You're still camping. You're still doing everything you need to do. Let's just get a bicycle and let's do that. But I kind of said to myself, I was like, look, there's not going to be any bike shops anywhere near. Maybe we'll ask someone, maybe try and buy their bike. But I kind of had I had the idea, and I kind of dismissed the idea, and I was like, yeah, whatever. If it happens, it happens. It is what it is. And I walk out of the hostel the morning I'm about to leave. I look to my right, and there's this woman on her bike about to leave her apartment. And I went to go and stop her and ask her how much to buy the bike. It was the first thing that came to my mind. And she just went the other way from, I thought she was going to come towards me. She went the opposite way. And I was like, well, it is what it is. Must not be what I meant to happen. I'm just going to keep walking. And I was well rested. I was in good spirits. I was, okay, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And I'm starting to walk out Corinthos, and I'm singing along. I'm having a good time. And I walked clean past this place, but at the corner of my eye, just as I walked past it, I looked to my right. I'm like, it's a bike shop. I hadn't seen a single bicycle shop at all, and it's just sat there. I swear to you, one of the last buildings before I left this little city, or one of the last places there, is this bike shop, and I'm like, wow. So I go in, start speaking to the guy. The guy had so many gold medals. He had done hundreds of triathlons, super fit, and like you could tell that my man was like just an athlete, like an extreme athlete. All these gold medals on the wall. He owned this bike shop, and I'm saying to him, look, I'm doing this. I don't have a lot of money to spend on a bike. And I ended up getting what I feel like was a pretty good deal. Maybe could have got it for a bit less, but I also knew that this guy probably didn't get a whole lot of business where he was. And I kind of asked him, I was like, how busy? He's like, very slow. Spoke really good English. I'm chatting away, whatever. I was like, okay. So I got a touring bike that I could put my bag on the back, and it had like space to put stuff in the front and whatever. And I was like, okay, but I need everything. Like, I need all the stuff I need for my bike. I need lights. I need straps to tie my bags down. I need puncture repair kit, pump for my tires. Like, I need everything. If you chuck all that stuff in, I'll give you the price of €200. So he wanted, I think, 250, and I got him down to 200. And I got to chuck all that stuff in as well. Now, that was not me trying to like scam him or take advantage of him. That's just my budget I had, and I knew that that's what I could afford to spend. But I knew I needed all this other stuff as well. And the kind of thing I said to myself was, look, I'll ask him. If he says yes, then I'll do it. And if he says no, then I'll just keep walking. That's kind of what I had in my head. I was like, I'll just keep walking. I get it if he doesn't want to sell it for this price. I think that's a fair price. And he did. It was a brand new bike, never been used before. And he did. He sold it to me. And he went next door to this motorbike shop, got some straps to tie my bags down, helped me strap it on, and I was on my way. And I never felt so much freedom. I'm cycling along, holy shit, I have a bike. And I'm cycling along, I'm like, this is incredible. I have a bike. I can't believe I have a bike. And I'm going so fast, man. I'm making like so much more ground up than I was walking. And I'm just zooming along these roads. I'm taking the scenery. I'm stopping more. I'm enjoying myself. I'm back. I'm back. I was so excited. I'm like, all that kind of dip in motivation I had just kind of went away. That dip in enthusiasm went away. It came back. I was like, yes, let's go. And yeah, make our way. Camped in some really beautiful places along the way, across the rest of Greece. Got all the way to the west side of Greece, and met some cool people along the way again. Then I took a ferry from there to Bari in Italy. So I got off at Bari, and I got off the ferry, weather was shit. So I'd had maybe 2 days in Greece the entire time, on the island of Rhodes at that, the weather wasn't good. And it was like storms. It wasn't like just a, not very nice weather. The weather was exceptional while I was in Greece. I'm very grateful for that. And it was the middle of winter there. I got to Italy, and it was like 14 degrees, which is still very hot. Like, that's weather I'm normally used to in Scotland, and like this time of year in September, October, and it wouldn't normally bother me. But I was not packed for that type of weather, and I also didn't think about that. I'm like, South Italy, the weather's going to be good. It's South Italy. Yeah, I was wrong. Got off, blowing a gale, pissing down with rain, and I felt very just kind of demoralized. I was like, shit. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to cycle inland. I'm going to find some trees. I'm going to camp up for the night, reassess for tomorrow, and we'll go from there. And I started to cycle, and there's no trees. There's nothing. I cannot see a single tree, and I kept cycling. I'm looking at my maps, found a little village. Okay, I'll head towards that village. At least that way, if I don't get anywhere to camp along the way, I can find like a hotel, or I can use. And I looked on Airbnb, not Airbnb, Booking.com. There was a couple places there. I was like, fine, fuck it, head that direction. And I'm cycling for hours, just inland. There's not a tree in sight. There was not one tree. There was like trees on farms, but the way they're spaced wasn't like the space in between them. I could not put a hammock up. They were also very small. It wasn't going to happen. Got into this place, booked this place on Booking.com. I get to the address. It's like it looks like almost an abandoned building. So I'm texting this guy, I'm phoning him on Booking.com, like, hey, but then he phones me and goes, hey, I'm not in the country. I'm actually on holiday right now. The place isn't available. I'm like, what the fuck? and I really started to lose a little bit. It was a real challenge for me that Italy was my least favorite place that I'd been. I didn't spend a lot of time in Italy, and once I got south of Italy, it became a lot more like I was a lot more joy there. But that was the part of the trip for me that was like the challenge. It was like, can we keep going? So then I phoned up Booking.com. They managed to sort it out, gave me a much better place, and that was like one of those things. Was like, oh, nice. I kind of got that gratitude back, and it was kind of on and off at this point. You know, it was like a bit of a light switch. Whereas like one day I was really good, next day I was like, oh, what am I doing? And it was kind of back and forth. I was missing home a bit. It had been a while since I seen my family. I didn't really have anyone else with me. I wasn't in hostels, so I wasn't meeting new people like that the same way I was beforehand. Spent a couple of nights there, and then I'm looking at the map. Okay, I'm going to head north. Look at the map, head up to this place here. Got to this place. A lot of cycling, a lot of shit weather on the way. Got there, and I'm like looking for trees on the map. I found some trees on the map. I'm like, nice, little forest section. That'll be class. Cycle towards it. Then there's this opening in between two houses that looks like a kind of empty plot where a house could, pardon me, sorry about that, where a house could be built, but there wasn't one there yet. And I see the trees. I see the trees at the back. It's the first time I've seen trees in like a while, and I was running out of money. I could not keep affording to pay for hotels and hostels, mainly hotels. I just couldn't keep affording it. It was draining through money way too quickly, and I just on my bike I beeline it, not thinking at all what the kind of ground was like underneath me because it'd been raining so heavily, and I get 30 meters and my entire bike up to my pedals is just in this deep, thick, sticky mud, and I'm covered in mud, and I just start laughing, man. I burst out laughing. I could not believe what the fuck was going on. I got off, but I dragged my bike back out of there. Wheels weren't turning, nothing. The whole thing was clogged up. It was a shit show. I had tore up my hands when I was trying to take all the mud out of this thing just to get the wheels moving again. I'm covered in mud. I've got nowhere to go. I go back into the town a little bit. I managed to get my shit all washed, and I stopped at a garage to let me wash my hands and kind of rinse off my bike, which was really nice of them. And I went, okay, fuck this. Where's the closest hostel? Closest hostel was back in Barry. I went, there is no way I am cycling back there right now. I'm going to go get so I cycled to the train station, got on the train with my bike, went back to Barry, got to this hostel, got in. I'd booked it for like four days or something like that, got in, and I just chilled the fuck out. I didn't leave the hostel unless I was going to go get food. I was just like, nah, I'm not doing this, man. I need to relax. I need to regroup. I need to recenter. And in there, I met a really, really kind and beautiful soul. And we sat and we had some great conversations, and that reignited that. It reminded me of why I was traveling. You know, it reminded me of like what it was I loved about doing this so much that I'd already kind of found in Egypt and earlier in Greece. And I was like, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it, because I get to meet really, really cool and interesting, like-minded people that are super fascinating. And I owe her an apology because her name has left my head right now, which is terrible. It really is terrible. So she was heading north, I was heading south, and I knew at that point, okay, I'm heading to Malta. I'm not going north up through Italy anymore. I'm going down to Malta. And I kind of been bouncing around with that. Once I got to Italy, I'm going to go north, I'm going to go south. I was like, nope, I want sun, I want good weather. Fuck this, I'm going south. So got on a train, made my way south. I looked on the map before, and I planned this out a little bit more. And right along the coastline of the south of Italy, there's just this big, like forest area that has been put there, right along the coast. I'm like, perfect, that'll do me nicely. So, so I made my way down there, cycled inland, got to some trees in this beautiful forest right next to the beach. The weather's pretty decent, and I'm just nice. This is it. Start making my way along there. The way it ended up working out is that I had to go inland. The way they kind of already have these rivers and canals coming out onto the ocean. There's no bridges that really cross them unless you go up to the main road, which is a good bit away, like from where the forest is. So it was kind of like I was going in, camping, along, back up, along, back in, camping, along, out, back, and it was just very constant of that. I was going in and out, and it was taking me a lot longer to make up good time, that and decent bit of distance than I kind of thought it would, than I'd hoped for. I kind of didn't have a whole lot of money to my name. But I was enjoying it. I was just enjoying the process, enjoying the journey. I was having a good time. There's one night I'm sat there and I'm camping, and I'm in my hammock, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe a meter, not even a meter off the ground. Yeah, it must be less than a meter off the ground. I was in this hammock, and I just hear these fucking wild boars, and I peep through like this little kind of opening in my hammock that I can look through, and I look through, and there's like four wild boars, big boars, like full blown tough, big boars. Um, at least they seem pretty big. Scale might have, like, it was dark, so scale might have been a little bit off, but I could hear them and they were rustling about. I just laid dead still, and I knew that they could be like, boars can be pretty vicious, kind of what I've read about them and stuff. If you startle them, or if like they've got babies, especially. So I didn't move. I just stayed very still. They were there for like a good hour at least. And I'm just listening to them. Oh, this is so surreal. Anyway, so I kind of continued to make my way down that kind of forest line. I come to this kind of scouting place. Now, scouts is something I did when I was younger, and it's international. And there was a scout like den. My phone battery was dead, just about. My battery bank was dead. I had no way of charging it. I hadn't seen a cafe or nothing in ages. Um, so I stopped there for a night, camped there. The guy came in the morning, didn't speak a word of English, this Italian guy. He got on the phone to his daughter. She translated. I told him what I was. He asked if I needed anything. And in hindsight, I probably should have said yes, because I needed to charge my phone. But I just said no. And that I was grateful for getting to stay there for the night, because there was like fresh water, like water taps and shit I could use. And I know they're never going to hear this, but they had a kind of outbuilding that was open. And I need to apologize, because in one of those things, in a drawer somewhere, they had this box full of sugar, like sugar sachets that you use for your coffee and stuff. And I took a fair handful of that, for tea and coffee, and I apologize, because I should not have stole that. Um, I know that might not seem very big, but it's something that kind of bugs me, because I did take that without anyone knowing, and I was snooping about there looking for something. Mainly, I was looking for electricity, but everything was turned off. So I ended up then getting a train to Rio Calabria, which is right at the bottom, just before you cross to Sicily. Went over to Sicily, spent like a day before my train, then headed down south, south of Sicily. Spent like maybe 3-4 days there. Ended up getting a ferry across to Malta, and then I spent like 2 weeks, 3 weeks straight, just in this hostel in Malta. I barely left it. I went to Malta to go and see oh, Gigantica. I think that's what it's called. Something like very similar to that anyway. Which is an ancient monument on Gozo. And I didn't even go and see that till my last day. I met some really cool people. I made some really cool friendships there. I just had a really good time, and it was a nice social event. And I felt like that for me was kind of bringing me back to the social reality of life that I kind of didn't have for a good majority of my last month, while I was kind of just walking and cycling. And I ended up leaving my bike there. Went to like a party hostel, and just had a good time, man. I was just having a good time. I spent whatever money I had left, and then I came home, and I'm waiting to get on the flight on the way home, and I'm starting to hear all these Scottish accents, and I just started crying. I couldn't believe that I just went and done what I had done. I couldn't fathom the fact that I had started in Egypt with a one-way flight. I went and seen all these incredible things, met all these people. Then I went to Greece, spent months on an island in Greece, and then I walked across Greece, and all the hardship and the mental processes I'd went through and came over, and the joy and the love, and just all this emotion just came over me all at once. And I was so proud of myself. I was so unbelievably proud of myself. And I still am, you know. It really was quite something. And I look forward to doing it again, I might add. I'm really looking forward to doing it again. When I'm ready anyway. And I came back, and that's when it became really challenging. I enjoyed like the first kind of week and a bit, getting to see all my family and stuff. And then I kind of shut off. I didn't know how to adapt back to it. I didn't want to adapt back to it. I didn't want to admit that I was going back to the reality that I was already living before I'd left. I didn't want to come to that realization that of like, oh, I'm I'm back to my normal life, quote unquote. Even though I'd kind of had all this experience and I went through this insane journey, and I felt like I was coming back with so much wisdom, and I had all these goals and all these, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It couldn't happen. And I got into a relationship with Sophie, the girl that came out and spent the week with me in Greece. And I got really heavily back into cannabis, and I was unemployed for a good bit. She was off ill, so I just lived with her, and I don't regret doing that. There was a lot of stuff in there that really allowed me to break a lot of cycles that I had. And that'll be a different episode. We'll talk about those. So what I want to do is actually speak about my traveling, then speak about my cycles that I broke and all the kind of stuff that's happened in the months after coming back from traveling. So I won't get into it too much. And then I've just had a past life regression that I really want to go in and talk about. So that'll be another episode as well. But yeah, it was a real struggle for me to adapt back to everyday life. I didn't want to. I feel like I was going back into this matrix, this fake idea of reality that everyone's living this 9 to 5 job, and everyone's living this way of life that just isn't real. It's not fulfilling. It's not what my heart wanted. But I knew that I could see now, rather, I have to be able to find that balance between living in this world that we live in. This is the reality of the world we live in when we're back home and we're in these countries and we're not just traveling. And that kind of feeling of freedom and exploration and adventure that I had while I was traveling, and finding that balance is what I'm really working towards at the moment, what I'm really setting my time and my energy towards. But I'm in the best place I've ever been in my life right now, which is why I'm doing this podcast again, because I feel ready to do it. I feel like it's the right time for me to start doing this. It's the right time for me to do what it is I want to do, really. Got myself a job, and I'm kind of back in the flow of myself again. I'm going back into myself. I'm reconnecting myself. I've completely stopped smoking the cannabis now. I'm not like quit forever. But I'm finding the correct balance that works for me. And at the moment in time, that is going to be, I maybe smoke a couple of times a year. It cannot be something that I do even once a month, because it just does not work with me anymore. It doesn't serve me anymore. Now, it might change in the future, and that's okay. And I love it. It's done me a lot of good. It's helped me through a lot of shit. I'm not hating on it. Anyone that does it, good for you. You could do whatever you like, but for me, that's just how it is for me at the moment. I've broke a lot of these cycles recently. So to summarize, to kind of bring everything together, I want to say a couple of things. If you can, and you have the opportunity to, and you want to, go traveling, do it. don't worry, don't hesitate, don't let other people's fear come over you. It will be the best thing you ever do. And that sounds very cliche, but it is the truth. It's the best experience I've ever had, and I am so grateful for it. It broadens your perspective. It opens your soul, your mind, your heart to yourself, to other people. If you can, and you're interested and it's something you want to do, walk. Do it. Walk a good bit of it, because you slow down. You slow right down, and it brings you back to reality and back to presence like nothing else when you're just walking across a country you do not know. There's something about that that is so profound. Me personally, I would not go and buy a bike again. I wouldn't cycle again. I would make sure I've got plenty of money, so I'm not having to think about food, like the cost of food and stuff like that, before I go traveling again. And I would take my time and I would just walk it, and I would make sure it's the right time of years for weather and whatever else. And that's what I intend to do in my next one, is to go back to Malta and then finish what I started. Walk up through Italy, through the south of France, through Spain, do the Camino, from the south of France through Spain into Portugal, and then go from there. That's what I intend to do with my next travel, because I want to finish what I sort of set out to do, and I want to do the Camino really badly. That's something I'm really interested in doing. I've kind of lost for words there. I feel like there's something else. I feel like there's something I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to express it. And if you are this far in the video, then I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really do, because I understand to sit and listen to someone else's experience that you have no clue who they are for, I don't know how long this has been, but I'm going to guess over an hour now, more than likely. It might not be. And to sit and listen to me, I'm very grateful for that. It means a lot to me. Um, yeah, I'm lost for words, so I'm going to bring this to an end. I just want to say thank you very much for listening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I hope there's maybe something in here that resonates with you or you can take away from it. If there's not, then that's okay. Maybe you just enjoyed an interesting story, and a unique story about my life. And at the bare minimum, you know me a bit better at the end of this, which hopefully in the future will be a good thing. As I start to grow this podcast and I get guests on, you'll kind of see where my perspective comes from and where my views come from, and my beliefs, my faith rather, comes from. So yeah, thank you again. This has been Ethan and the Divine Love Podcast, and I'll see you all very very soon.